Mic check 1 2, mic check 1 2. Hello everyone, how's everyone doing today? Hope everyone is doing well out there. Today is August 16th, 2020, and it is a very special episode because it's a Sunday episode. Anyway, it's been a week since my last lesson or podcast, so welcome to it. I'm just going to go over some of the expressions that I came across in the last week and share those with you. And then I will maybe spend a little bit of time explaining and giving examples. You know the drill, the regular routine. Lately, I have been working a little bit on posting different expressions that have to do with dating, using a radio show here from the United States as some examples, and that seems to be getting pretty well received. People seem to be enjoying that, but yeah, definitely send me some feedback if there's something you want me to talk about, something that you want me to address specifically, something that you don't understand or whatever. Expressions is kind of the specialty or what I like to focus on, just because I feel like that's a lot of the life of a language, right? The expressions and phrases. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get into some of the expressions I shared on Instagram the last week. YouTube, I haven't really uploaded any videos or updated anything much on there. In fact, I think the last thing I posted was the last podcast that I did last Sunday. So that one there, I haven't done any newer videos there. But hopefully I will put together something and have a little more regular content and lessons for you this next week. Anyway, looking at some expressions I came across. This one here is a phrasal verb. It's to drown someone out. And I found this in a song. It's talking about being drowned out by someone. And basically, this is a phrase that might be a little difficult to understand if you translate it literally. But it basically means to ignore someone or to put some sound over someone else's sound. So you're drowning out the sound. So typically, if you look up the word drown, you're going to find translations that have to do with, when you are unable to swim and you end up dying from swallowing too much water. That's what drowning is. But we use this phrasal verb to drown something out. And usually it's referring to a noise or to a person. Maybe a person is bothering us, so we try to drown out their noise with music on our headphones. But it's basically trying to drown out a noise is like trying to cancel the sound of someone's voice by making other noises that overpowers that person's voice. So that is what it means to drown someone out. Another expression that I came across in a song was to burn bridges. So to burn bridges is a phrase that we use. It's very common, and it talks about basically ending a relationship on bad terms. So the most common examples I can think of is you can burn bridges with like your boss, by maybe you leave your job without giving any notice, or you leave your job after getting in a fight with your boss. And so we call that, burning bridges with your past employer. And when you burn bridges, it basically means that you don't have a connection with them anymore, or you don't have, you're not on good terms with them anymore. So again, this could be talking about your profession and work, but it also could be talking about a relationship, right? You can burn bridges with somebody that maybe you were friends with for a while, but things didn't work out for some reason, and you burnt bridges with them, right? You basically severed all your ties. That's the phrase. You severed your ties, which means you kind of have gone your separate ways, and it usually implies that there is a kind of underlying lingering tension between you, right? So there's hard feelings and bitterness that remain and may never be healed. So think about that person you were in a relationship with that ended up, treating you poorly and left you in a bad situation. You could say that person burnt bridges with you. Another phrase to look at here is the phrase, don't get me wrong. This one is pretty straightforward, so I won't spend too much time on it, but the reason that I pointed out, it's pretty obvious, I think, what somebody's saying when they say, don't get me wrong, but it's one that we use a lot in English. It's so common for somebody to be speaking and saying, don't get me wrong. I think this is like, don't misunderstand me, don't misinterpret what I'm trying to say. So it's like a way of kind of correcting yourself, or maybe if you say something that could be offensive and you want to make it sound less offensive, you can use this phrase. You can say, okay, don't get me wrong. I like to eat potato chips and ice cream, but sometimes it's nice just to have a salad. I don't know. There's an example, right? Don't get me wrong. I enjoy indulging in unhealthy food, but I try to stay disciplined. It's like, don't misunderstand what I'm trying to say. Don't misinterpret me. So we say, don't get me wrong. Another one is this phrase, hands down. So to say something is hands down the best, or hands down the most anything, it's basically like you'll say this when you're like, oh, this was hands down the best concert I ever went to. It basically means, when you say hands down, that it's indisputable. It's like nobody can raise their hand to object to what you're saying. It is indisputable what you're saying. It is, hands down the best, or this was hands down, you could say it in a negative way too, like this was hands down the worst TV show I've ever watched. It just means it's indisputable. And I don't know if it's actually referring to somebody cannot raise their hand and object to what you're saying, but that's the way I like to think of it. That's the way I think it makes the most sense. Hands down, meaning nobody can raise their hands up in objection, because it was hands down the worst. So it's like just it's almost like a superlative or an absolute, like nobody can argue with this. This is indisputable that what I'm saying here is the truth, is fact. Next phrase that I would like to look at is count your blessings. So when we say count your blessings in English, this just means, appreciate what you have. Take a moment to appreciate the good things that you have in life. For example, if you're complaining that your mail is getting to your house late, you might have somebody say to you, well, you should count your blessings that at least you didn't have to go down to the post office and pick it up. It's like, appreciate what you have, enjoy what you have, so we say that a lot to talk about just appreciating what you have. Or if I'm talking about myself, I could say I'm counting my blessings because I thought I was going to have to work 10 hours today, but my boss let me go after 7 hours. So I'm counting my blessings. I'm appreciating something. I've been blessed, basically, and I'm counting my blessings. I'm taking a moment to appreciate them and honor them. The next phrase was to reap what you've sown. So when you reap what you've sown, I believe this comes from farming. And the idea is basically, you plant something and that will grow, and you basically get what you have started, or you benefit or fail based on your previous actions. So we say this a lot, like to teach somebody a lesson, or to, it's pretty cliche. It's like saying, you get what you manifest, basically. So you reap what you sow. More commonly, I think people use this in like a negative context. If you do something bad to somebody and that person does something bad back, or you are just a bad person and karma comes back around, people might tell you, well, you reap what you sow. I don't know if you've cheated someone out of money, or if you've done some questionable things in the past, and then bad stuff starts happening to you. Somebody may tell you this. They might say, well, you reap what you sow. It's like you do the same sort of stuff, so naturally you shouldn't be too surprised that it's happening to you. So you reap what you sow. Next one here is money doesn't grow on trees. So I like this one. It's a common one that I hear from my parents, or that I heard from my parents when I was growing up. And that simply means that, you have to go out and earn money. You don't just have money growing on trees. So you have to be cautious how you spend your money and be mindful how you spend it, because you might run out of it. It doesn't just grow on trees. You can't just plant money and money will grow from that. So that's kind of the idea there. It's a fun little phrase that people use a lot. Money doesn't grow on trees. My mom used to say, if I asked for something that was expensive or said I wanted that, she'd say, oh yeah, let me just get this money tree. Let me just go get my money tree and I'll give you some money for it. So we say money doesn't grow on trees. I imagine it's probably a similar expression in most languages, because the idea isn't, the idea is pretty universal, I guess I want to say. Another phrase, this was kind of a throwback from this phrase. I posted it probably about 2 years ago on Instagram, but the phrase was to drop the ball. So when you drop the ball, it means that you basically made a mistake. You're not dependable. You're not fulfilling your responsibilities. You're not executing things efficiently or thoroughly. So we'll say, like, for example, if it's someone's birthday and I forget to call them, I can say, oh, I'm so sorry I didn't call you on your birthday. I dropped the ball. I use these birthday examples a lot. They're pretty standard, but if I'm doing something at work and I make a big mistake that costs the company a lot of money, my boss might be frustrated with me, and I might just apologize and say, sorry, I really dropped the ball here. It's like, I really made a mistake. I'm really sorry about it. We'll say I'm owning it. I'm owning my mistakes. You're accepting accountability and responsibility for something when you say you dropped the ball. And we use it to talk about other people, like, this guy really dropped the ball. I believe this expression comes from, sports, because in most sports in the United States, like football or basketball or baseball, dropping the ball usually is a bad thing. If you drop it in almost any of the sports, it usually sets your team back. It puts your team behind. It's not a good thing. So I believe that's where the expression comes from, but we love to use that expression. Oh, he really dropped the ball. And yeah, it's super, super common. Next expression here, and if you want to refer to these expressions, they're in my Instagram under Music for August. and most of them have a song tied to them. So this next expression, this next phrase is to do someone wrong. So this is probably pretty easy to understand if your level is intermediate or advanced English. But basically, to do someone wrong is to do something bad to them. But it's kind of a common phrase, and the wording there is a little bit interesting. Like somebody might say, "Oh, you did me wrong," instead of saying you wronged me, which is another thing you could say. You say you did me wrong. It's like you did something to hurt me, or you did something that was unfair. For example, in business, somebody could do you wrong by cheating you out of money, or making a bad deal with you. In a relationship, somebody could do you wrong by cheating on you. So that's what we mean when we talk about someone doing you wrong. That's typically the most common context. I'm thinking it might sound kind of weird if you use that expression like in a classroom, like if your teacher embarrasses you for not knowing an answer. You probably wouldn't say the teacher did me wrong. You would probably say like the teacher humiliated me or something. But yeah, it's more business and relationship sort of context. That's kind of the tricky thing with idioms and expressions is, they do have a lot of nuances, and, if you don't use them in the appropriate context, sometimes they can sound a little out of place. But typically people can understand you, will understand what you want to say. So I think it's still important to try and practice them and use them just to give a little bit more variety to your language, sound less mechanical, sound, more conversational. So don't worry too much about appropriate contexts. Of course, I'll always let you know if something's vulgar and something you wouldn't want to say in a professional environment. But for the most part, most of the phrases that I focus on are usually not too vulgar. I try to avoid those ones. I'll have to save those for a special class. Next one to look at is a mover and a shaker. So this phrase here is one that we use to talk about somebody who is usually like kind of the life of a party, or somebody who's very social and always kind of another phrase we say is wheeling and dealing. Like you're always like interacting with people and always moving around and socializing and stuff. We'll say this person is a mover and a shaker. And in a business context, it's usually someone who's ambitious and talented at negotiating business deals. So we'll say this person's a mover and a shaker. He's always introducing his friends to other friends that he thinks they might get along with. And when you go to a party, he's always out there introducing himself, getting to know different groups and introducing people to other people. So somebody who's good at networking could be considered a mover and a shaker. So that is what it means to be a mover and a shaker. This next phrase here is a phrasal verb. We use it a lot to talk about ignoring someone. So I think this is a really good one because we use it, and it's probably fairly hard to translate it literally, but the phrase is to blow someone off. And this is mainly talking about when you ignore somebody, or you don't return that person's phone calls, or you don't pay attention to somebody. So we can talk about this in dating or friendships. If you're making plans with your friends to go out for the weekend and none of them are calling you back, you could say, oh, these guys are blowing me off. I guess they don't want to hang out this weekend. Or maybe you'll confront your friend and say, hey, why are you blowing me off? I'm trying to make plans with you. To blow someone off is like, the imagery I have is like you're blowing them off your shoulder, like they're kind of at your ear trying to get your attention, and you just blow them off your shoulder. So you're blowing them off. We say blowing that person off. It's pretty much just ignoring somebody. And then the next one here is to butter someone up. So this was a post I made about a grandkid trying to flatter his grandpa by saying he looked really good. And the grandpa's like, well, you must be trying to butter me up because you want something. So to butter someone up, it looks like most people knew this one because the post I made, everybody seemed to have an idea of what it meant. But it basically means to flatter somebody. So you could say he's trying to butter you up. He wants something. And I believe that the reason being because when you put butter on something, the butter becomes soft and melts, and whatever you're eating is softer as well and maybe more flavorful and less tough. So that's, I believe, why we say this phrase. You're putting butter on the person, kind of. You're buttering them up. And this is a good example of how we'll use a phrasal verb by combining a noun and a preposition and say to butter up. And the reason it's like that is because when you butter up something, it's like you're adding a lot of butter on it. You're buttering it up, right? So you're increasing. That's why the up is there. You're increasing the amount of butter on there. And this is common with a lot of phrasal verbs with up. Up almost acts like a superlative or kind of an absolute, So like we'll say, are you finished up? It's like, are you completely done? You could say, are you finished? But are you finished up? Just kind of, it's almost like, if you're looking at a graph and it goes up, it kind of curves off. So it stops right there. It creates an ending point, finished up. And to butter someone up, it's kind of the same idea. But in this case, it's like adding a lot of butter. So people might say, oh yeah, you're really buttering up that slice of bread, adding a lot of butter to it. But we use it in a more figurative sense to say that you are flattering somebody to get something that you want out of that person. And then let's go ahead and look at one more expression, and that is, we're not going down that road. So this is one that I heard in conversation the other day and thought it would be a good one to teach. But basically, we'll say we're not going down that road when, we're maybe getting in an intense discussion or a heated debate or argument, and somebody kind of brings up something that's personal, and we say, hey, you know what? We're not going down that road. So the example I gave was like parents saying it to their kids, like, we're not going down that road when a kid starts talking about, I don't know, taking their first trip by themselves. And the parent's like, absolutely not. You're still too young. We're not even going down that road. It's like we're not even leading a path down this argument because it's just going to get worse and worse. And there is no discussion. The parents will say, end of discussion. It's like they have the final word. So that is the end of the discussion. So we'll say, we're not going down that road. We're not even going down that road. We're not going to go down that road today. Could be the same when you're talking a relationship to somebody and you bring up a sensitive topic. The partner might say, we're not going down that road. All right, so that is it for today. I think we covered quite a few of the idioms and expressions from the week. I hope you enjoyed the explanations, and I hope the podcast format gives you a way to leisurely listen, and you have the Instagram account there, the Learn English Expressions Instagram account to follow and catch up and have visual examples if you want that. But hopefully this podcast gives you kind of an idea of how to use the expressions and gives you a better understanding of the expressions. All right. Well, thank you for listening. I hope everyone has a wonderful week. I'm going to try and get another podcast on here in the middle of the week. Working on a few things right now, and hopefully I'll be able to put something together midweek so you have another podcast to listen to. And if not, I'll be back next Sunday for another special episode. Sunday episode's always special. All right. Well, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Thanks for tuning in, and keep studying and keep learning. We'll see you next time.